Entonces vamos a recapitular este primer epígrafe.
Now, I'm going to sum up this first section by mentioning several of the characteristics of this process I have just explained. First, money is the result of a spontaneous process driven or fueled by the force of entrepreneurship. Thus, the emergence of money was not deliberately caused by any human being. In other words, no one deliberately invented money. I remember when I was young and in elementary and high school, there was a history book we were all required to memorize, and it literally stated, "The Phoenicians were very clever because they invented money." In no way did the Phoenicians invent money. Money is such a complex social institution that it could not be invented. It involves such a large volume of practical information and knowledge over generations and generations that it far exceeds the mental capacity of any human being or group of human beings, no matter how wise, good, prudent and intelligent they are. No one invented money, because that would be impossible. Nor is money the result of a social contract or a social agreement. In other words, there we human beings were, and suddenly we gathered in an assembly and we said, "This is chaos. Bartering entails many restrictions and transaction costs. Let us see. Let us draw up a contract. Let us create a commonly and generally accepted medium of exchange." Nothing could be further from the truth. Such a social contract does not exist. This is simply a caricature or an a posteriori explanation. And furthermore, it is theoretically erroneous and contains numerous scientific defects. In addition, money was certainly not coercively imposed by the state. The state had nothing to do with the emergence of money. State intervention in the processes which give rise to the emergence of money took place very late in history. Without a doubt, the state has intervened, but it has done so at the very last second in history, so to speak. Moreover, we are going to study the highly perverse way it has intervened, and how, by manipulating money, by expropriating private money, which is the result of that evolutionary process that has taken place throughout history, the state has caused extremely damaging, even tragic, distortions in social cooperation. What is more, we can illustrate this with, initially, the financial crisis, and later the economic recession, which is now ravaging the world. It is undoubtedly one more manifestation of those harmful effects due to the intervention of the state in the institution of money. The second essential idea we must recall is that money is key. As an institution, it is key to the common good, to the advancement of civilization. Before, I referred to it as the quintessential social institution. And in a way, this should surprise and also delight us, because the great message of economic theory is that the most important institutions, those that make possible the survival and advancement of civilization, in short, our very lives, have not arisen from a deliberate human effort to improve anything, but have arisen spontaneously, without anyone specifically seeking them.
Cada uno de nosotros buscando en nuestro microcosmos.
As we pursue our specific ends and means in our own microcosm, and as we come into contact with other people, each of us generates, without realizing it, behavior patterns that take the form of social institutions, which are the foundation of civilization. Money, morality, language. Nobody deliberately decided to invent the Spanish we speak, but rather it emerged through a very lengthy process in history, a process led by a multitude of human beings. Without a doubt, language, morality, law and money have sprung from the interaction between a large number of human beings, thousands, millions in fact. But human beings have not deliberately sought any of those institutions. Well, these spontaneous processes should surprise and astound us. And in fact, the object of research in economic science consists precisely of these institutions. These spontaneous orders which make life in society possible, and in which the leading role is played by flesh and blood entrepreneurs, who are driven by entrepreneurship, the main features of which we studied at the beginning of this course. Finally, this theoretical knowledge is tremendously useful to us in understanding and interpreting concrete historical events we wish to analyze as historians. Of course, our ability to discover the particular form the theoretical institution of money took at any specific time will depend on historical circumstances. We have talked about the use of wheat in the ancient Egypt of the pharaohs. And if you pick up the Bible and read the story of Abraham, you will read that Abraham was considered a wealthy man because he had wine and many head of livestock, the medium of exchange at the time. So, in one place, wheat was used. In other historical circumstances, sheep and goats. A little further up on the map, small pieces of metal. We could even travel in our time machine to the Mexico of the Aztecs when the Spanish arrived. We would see that cocoa beans were the medium of exchange. They were a good comparable to wheat in Egypt, and also a very frequent object of exchange. As children, we all saw westerns. Well, in westerns, what is the chief of the Indian tribe normally wearing? He is normally wearing a sort of coat of mail made of mollusk shells, which were very highly valued by the North American Indians. In our own historical circumstances, the equivalent would be me showing up here covered in gold. Mollusk shells were what those people valued most. Money fulfills its role better the more widespread its acceptance as a medium of exchange. So, throughout the evolutionary process, one medium of exchange tends to prevail over the rest in a spontaneous, voluntary and uncoerced manner. In fact, the spontaneous emergence of the institution of money is not linear, but instead we can conceive of many historical circumstances in which 2 or 3 media of exchange coexist, and after trial and error, one ends up prevailing. Today, we are in a position to assert that throughout the evolutionary process of humanity, throughout the thousands and thousands of years, and the generations that have gone before us, up to today, one single medium of exchange, gold, and to a lesser extent silver, but mainly gold, has spontaneously predominated worldwide as a commonly and generally accepted medium of exchange. Similarly, we could say that the spontaneous process in the sphere of language never stops, and that we are part of a dynamic process in which, sooner or later, all languages will converge into a single language. Thousands of years ago, there were many dialects. Later, those spoken in the Iberian Peninsula all converged into Spanish. Nowadays, a number of languages are spoken, but we see that one language is commonly and generally accepted in the worlds of business and science, and that is English, in which everyone, whether Russian, French or Italian, communicates. If you visit the European Union, you will find that almost everyone speaks English. Well, this process continues. We do not know precisely which language will prevail in the future, but we are immersed in a dynamic process in which the languages spoken always tend to converge into just a few, and usually into just one, so that we can all understand each other in the areas of commerce, industry, business and science. Well, the same is true of money. But since money is the quintessential social institution, its evolutionary process came earlier. And now we are in a position to affirm that, without a doubt, the medium of exchange humanity has spontaneously chosen, in an evolutionary manner, throughout history, has been what I have here in my hand. It is a troy ounce, a little over 31 grams of pure gold.